Good afternoon. This is Pamela Bluewater for J&S Biblical Productions. I am at the home of Lot, formerly from Sodom, now living in Zoar in the lower Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea Plain. We are going to talk to Lot after the recent destruction of his home in Sodom to see what lessons he may have learned. Welcome, Lot.
Thank you, Miss Bluewater.
Lot, you must have learned a lesson after watching the destruction of your home in Sodom and losing your wife. Can you tell us from the beginning how and why the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed by God?
That is easy to explain. These cities were overrun with sin. I was sitting at the gate of Sodom when two angels came, and I invited them to come into my house, and I baked them some unleavened bread, which they ate. It wasn't long before the townspeople, the men, shouted for the two men to come out so they could have sex with them. I offered my two virgin daughters, but they weren't interested. You see, the men of Sodom preferred homosexuality.
That does sound pretty sinful. Then what?
Well, the angels blinded the townspeople so they couldn't see the door. The next morning, the angels urged me to take my wife and my two daughters and flee the city for the mountains and not to look back because the Lord was going to destroy the city.
Okay, and then what?
The next day, when we entered Zoar, the Lord rained down a sulfurous rain upon Sodom and Gomorrah. It annihilated all the inhabitants of the two cities and all the vegetation. My wife, for some reason, looked back and was instantly turned into a pillar of salt.
You don't know why she looked back?
I'm not sure, but I have an idea. This is what I remember she said. But why?
Dear, I love God. I know what we ought to do. I want to be saved, but I've identified with Sodom. I share much of the materialistic mindset of the Sodomites. I've been caught up in the excitement rounds of party and pleasure. I'm reluctant to leave my affluent Sodom home with its fine things.
But dear, our heathen neighbors and the society they live in are shameless, degenerate, and entirely sex-perverted.
But dear, I can hardly pull away from our accumulated treasures of our finely furnished rooms. I've got to think about it. Maybe linger a little longer.
You see, Miss Bluewater, from living in Sodom all those years, we were used to the corrupt moral society. My wife missed the conformity with that corrupt world. The sin, the homosexuality, the morals. She had blended in with the same goals as their world.
I see. So you were able to break free from the corruption of Sodom?
Yes, but my wife wanted to keep a little bit of sin in her life. So she lingered and was turned into a pillar of salt.
I have a slightly different opinion. If you're not sure you want to conform to the ways of the world, then just have a little of Sodom's sin in your heart. What's wrong with that? So many people today are like Mrs. Lot. They linger.
There's plenty wrong with that, Miss Sedgway. You can hang on to your sinful ways if you insist. But you can see from my story that God pours out his wrath on unbelieving sinners. I've realized that the only ones who are Saved, or will be saved, are those who are the objects of God's compassion and who believe in God.
All right, Lot, you've made your point. And Miss Sedgway, I think you are taking a chance wanting to retain a little bit of sin. You could turn into salt too. This is Pamela Bluewater for J&S Biblical saying, we should pay attention to Lot's lesson and his wife turning into salt and leave sin and corruption totally behind. Read the entire chapter 19 of Genesis again, and you'll see what I mean. Good morning.